everybody, I am here today with the lovely Angel. We haven't spoken for a little while, have we, Angel?
No, not for a little while.
But I wanted to ask your opinion, because I've got this video. I haven't actually put it out yet, but it does say on there that this was the Great Pyramid, which you don't think it is, but hidden in the wall is a pharaoh.
Well, I know it's not.
Yeah, you know it's not.
It's not that I don't think it is. I know it's not. You know, I am pretty familiar. Now, I've never been there, but I've got plenty of video of people exploring the Great Pyramid in every position there is, and nowhere in there is that wall found.
Can I just say, they used different torches, and they were saying that one piece was, oh God, what was it? I've got to find it. Hang on, I've got to find it. It's up here.
Yeah,
so they had a torch, and they were going, this is limestone, and as they shine it on there, it's one colour. But when they put it on the calite crystal, which is where the figure is, it was different, and it showed the figure.
Right. I think it's like an ultraviolet light or something. The frequency of the torch, the flashlight, the light source, creates or doesn't create. It's like when you take an ultraviolet light and you go out at night and you shine it at your garden and it lights up like a Christmas tree. Or you take an ultraviolet light in a salt water fish tank and you turn it on and all the fish start glowing and stuff. The fish and the plants, and even your own skin, when you look at your skin under ultraviolet light, the way the light frequency reflects off the surfaces, it gives different and very brilliant colors. And what they were showing in that particular video, which I have nothing against the technology, is that the particular torch, the flashlight, the light source they were using, reacted differently. The light showed that they were not the same type rock. And it's even possible to put images within the rock so that the rock face looks one way, but when you hit it with the light,
do you think, what I was going to ask you was,
but the rock itself reflects differently.
Do you think there's more of these things hidden in places, maybe not the pyramids, but in other things, temples and that, and people don't realise they're there?
Well, I don't know if they're really hiding something in this particular case. All they're demonstrating is that they're two different types of rock. It's not like the rock has a hidden meaning, like if you ever seen the movie Gone in 60 Seconds.
But then they obviously put all that stuff that's in there on top of it, not realising it was there.
Well, they're not. There's nothing to be there. It's just the rock that it's etched into is a different rock.
Mm.
That's all they're showing. They're showing one rock is, dolomite, and one rock is granite or something.
It's limestone and calcite crystal.
Right. One is actually
so
a
what's
crystal and one
crystal
is a rock.
then? What's calcite crystal then?
Well, it's when rock forms. Well, crystal is not technically rock. Crystals grow where rock cools and settles and forms.
So they just cut a sheet of this out and put it in then?
Well, you're asking me what the builders did. I can't. All they're showing you is that even though to the naked eye, when first looking at it, the two rocks look similar, they are two different rocks. I think that's what the video, and again, I didn't make the video, so I think that's what the video is trying to show you, is that these are two different types of rocks, and one of them is actually technically a crystal, which I think, as far as we categorize them, takes it out of the rock category and puts it into a crystal category. I think that's what the video is trying to show. But the premise that I stand on is that the video says this is evidence of how the pyramids were made, when number one, what they're demonstrating is nowhere found within the pyramid. It's, I believe, in the Valley of Kings, but that's like saying, hey, here's how the bank vault is made, and saying that shows how the building was made.
What it is they've got two torches though, so they shine one torch on it and they say, see, you can't see anything. But then when they put the other torch on it, out comes, it's got a triangle in it, out comes the
Because one is probably just a standard white light flashlight, and the other one probably has like ultraviolet. Have you never seen at clubs and stuff where they'll hit your wrist with something you can't see until they put ultraviolet light on it? Are you not familiar with that technology?
Is that how they find foods and stains in the room? You know, like they put this light.
They'll do that when they're looking for blood splatter. They will use an ultraviolet light as well, because the blood, the hemoglobin, I think, in the blood reacts to ultraviolet light. And so you can see where blood was. Even if you bleach it and stuff, you can still see where the blood stain was.
But it's still quite a technological thing, because this figure is in there. It's not probably the best figure ever. It's been etched into the wall, but it's still a pharaoh, which you don't see until you put that light on, and then it shows it.
You're saying there's an actual image that you see, not just the reflection? Because when I was looking at it, I didn't see an image.
No, it's in there. There's a pharaoh in it. He's got his arm up. He's got one arm on his chest and one arm up.
All right. I hadn't noticed that, and that would, I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but that just shows that they actually put a art, the same way that we would put a, what do you call it, inside a piece of glass, a hologram. They put a hologram within there.
1 second, because we might not talk about this afterwards, but I'm going to play, it's only a minute long, I'm going to play the video so you can hear it again, what they say.
Well, can you make it so I could see it?
Okay, hang on, everybody. I'm saying something. Carry on, Angel.
All right, what I was saying is, I'm looking at the same video, going off the link that you sent me.
Yeah.
And I see where in the video, he takes the flashlight and he holds it up to the granite or whatever. And it looks like you're holding a flashlight to a wall. Then he puts it on the other wall, which I would say is a rock or... but in this case he says it's crystal, and you can see that the light kind of absorbs into the wall, permeates through it a couple of inches, and then reflects out. It looks like you're, shining into a fish tank or something, a very shallow fish tank. But I don't see where there's an image of a pharaoh within the wall.
Go to the very last bit. Go to the very last bit.
Give me the seconds. I will look at the video.
Where he's got the torchlight on it at the very end. It's basically the last 5-10 seconds.
5-10 seconds. All right, I'm looking at the last 5-10 seconds here.
Angel's looking at the video again. He's looking.
Oh, it just re-looped. Hang on. All right, I'm looking at where he's staring it over the top of something. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
He holds the light at an angle and you can see it.
Yeah.
Because it's doing it in the shadows. Okay. Now, I can't swear it. I'm not there. But if it's actually etched into the crystal, that's pretty cool. The same way we do holograms nowadays, which shows again that they have a better understanding of technology and how to play with it than we do today. Because other than making holograms that we put in a clear crystal, these guys did it in a dual purpose crystal.
Because we're always assuming that they were not as advanced as we are, even though they've got these things, but they must have been far more advanced.
Well, I've lost that assumption within the past decade. Knowing what I know the Great Pyramid and the supporting structures do, how they were manipulating water, and I know they had a better understanding of the elements than we do today, because they were using technology that we didn't in our current day didn't even discover into the early 1920s. And they were using this however long ago that these structures were in function. So they definitely had more knowledge. Now,
I know what he does, Angel. I know what it is. When he points the torch at it, you can't see it. But when he lines it up sort of against the wall, so you say causing shadows, then you see it.
Right. Now, that may, and I'm not there, so I can't guarantee it. You may still get that using a standard flashlight doing it at an angle. Is he saying only that other one does it? Because you can put those images in walls just by slightly sanding in a certain area, and then you hold it, and you can still do those. There's a place, I think it's Peru or something, where there's one rock that it looks like the head of SpongeBob or something like that. But when you walk around it, at different points among the rock, you will get very distinct facial features out of the rock, and when you look at it head on, you don't see it, but when you look at it at an angle, they line up and you can see it.
Yeah, that's what there. Yeah. It's not there, but it's there. It's crazy because you don't see it at all in the wall, and then when you move the torch, there it is.
Right. Have you seen pieces of artwork that you normally put it along the side of a river?
You don't think they've put that in there, Angel? You don't think they've put that in there, do they? Do you? Because I'm just running the torch over it, and it's not there at all. You can't even see its arm, and then suddenly there it is. I don't know, but anyway, I'm just playing that bit of video to show it's not there, then it's there.
Right, you hold it. Now, what I was getting, I know Mississippi in the United States, along the water, there's a spot where it's either 5 or 7 standing metal that by themselves look like nothing, but if you stand at the right angle, the cutouts in the piece of metal all come together to form an image. And I can probably find that and send you a link, but it's the same idea. It does show that they're able to get things cut very finely and tunely to get it line up, which is something that, it wouldn't be done very easily without.
But they wouldn't just have
tools.
one of those in the room, would there? There's got to be more, unless it's telling you where to go or do something.
That's speculation. I can't say there.
Why would they just put one in there?
You're asking speculation. I only go with what I know.
Well, it's crazy.
There's one on each wall.
Yeah, maybe.
Wall because they wanted to sign it, just like people put copy watermarks on pictures.
But the thing is, it does say the Great Pyramid. Do you believe it's the Great Pyramid?
I know it. Where in the Great Pyramid wall I have plenty of GoPro video and people walking around with their old camcorders back from the 90s.
Well, the video's made up and the figure isn't even real. I don't know.
That could be true in that part of the country, that part of the world. I can only video show enough video of the Great Giza Pyramid that I could play, other than the pyramid project ideas, that or Jeffrey Drum, the other one, that lives there. I probably know the structure pretty well, and you can show me a photograph and I can tell you in what part of the structure it's located, unless you narrow it down and show me 5 inches and say where's this? But if you showed me a picture of a 6-foot section of any wall of the Great Giza Pyramid, I could probably tell you where in the structure that is located. And I know no knowledge of where the wall that they're pointing at is located, because it's not in the Great Giza Pyramid. It is very well documented.
It's got a what do you call it? If you look where they're standing, supposedly there's a tomb there with the lid off.
Right. They could be over in the tombs. There could be lots of places. I'm not saying Egypt. I'm saying they're not in the Great Giza Pyramid in either of the supporting structures in the area. There are no tombs in the Great Giza Pyramid. There are no etchings and markings in the Great Giza Pyramid, except for the one up in the relieving chambers, which may or may not be authentic. They say that may have been done in the 1800s. But again, I'm not here to argue that. And that is just paint on a wall, etching into the wall. Nowhere in the Great Giza Pyramid there are etchings. What do they call that pyramid language? Not chloroform.
I can't remember. Wait a minute. Should we talk? I know that you don't know what that is, but should we talk about something else now?
Go ahead.
We're back on now because Angel wants to do some talking, don't you, Angel?
Sure. One thing that I found out, that I realized at the end of August of this year, and I haven't really addressed in my videos because I'm trying to find some way to make a model, because I could say whatever I want. If I model it, then you can visually see it. And the problem I have is if I do it in a computer, again, I can make a computer do whatever I want. I mean, heck, we've flown to the moon, right? So
No, we haven't. We haven't flown to the moon.
But that was a private inside joke.
Yeah, I know.
What I'm saying is a physical model showing physical, like, flow will actually make somebody can't say no, it won't do that when you physically have something doing it right in front of you. But I realized begrudgingly that part of the flow of the structure that I have is wrong. The water doesn't enter into the Great Giza Pyramid from the surface of the Great Giza Pyramid. And this is something where I have to rework my model completely, and I'm actually going to have to scrub a bunch of my old videos because I've been making a mistake. And that's one thing that I honestly feel that differs me from everybody else that I know that's doing the research, and I don't know anybody else who is really.
So where's the water coming from then? Underground?
No. If you this is where a whiteboard would be easier, so I could point at things, because things aren't labeled, so I can't say it comes from pond B5.
Do you want me to put Facebook on? But I have to, I can only listen to you then. Do you want to put Facebook on to show us?
No. I don't want to make any changes to anything right now, because I'm not in a position to do that.
You in your pajamas?
I'm worse than that.
You're naked. Oh, I know. You're in one of those flashy shirts you've got, aren't you?
No, well, I kind of am wearing a shirt that says something about drink beer or something. It's a St. Patrick's Day shirt that says, like, green beer is just as good as any other beer or something like that. I don't know. It was just a shirt that I put on because it was colorful.
So where's the water coming from then?
Well, the water source is the same source. If you are familiar... So
where on here? Is there a picture I can put up with it on?
Well...
Where you think it's coming in or whatever?
I'll basically give you what my long-term project of what I hope to do, hopefully, is to get GPS coordinates where people can follow along on Google Maps. And I can say the water is coming from and give it a GPS coordinate so people can look at it and see what I'm talking about by using something like Google Maps. Now, the easiest way right now for you, if you're using Google Maps, to get the water source is on the Giza Plateau. Look for the area that Google likes to label the Tomb of the Birds.
Let me have a look. Let me just look it up. Let me look it up.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Of the... Oh, you've talked about this before.
Right.
It's a whack-a well, isn't it?
It's a well.
Hang on. I didn't put tomb in. Hang on. Tomb of the Birds. So I put Egypt. Egypt.
Well, you kind of have to be looking at the Giza necropolis when you type that places on the planet that says Tomb of the Birds. But
it's got
did you find
birds in tomb. It's got caves. So where am I looking exactly? Hang on, I'm just going to stop this for a moment and get the right picture up.
They can't hear you. Hi there. All right. Karen is currently off screen. You can't hear her because of the microphone. But you can see my screen, right? You can answer. Okay. So just type in Giza on Google Maps, and mine, it auto-populates there. You can see it's right up top. But you normally have to type in Giza, NEC. It will take you to the Giza necropolis. Now, which necropolis actually means, like, neck is death, like necrophilia, and cropolis means location or something like that. So it's Latin for the place of death. Anyway, that'll bring you right there to what they like to tell you is, where a bunch of tombs are. Now, I'm going to suggest to you that they're not tombs, but either way, It'll take you to the Giza necropolis, which will dump you there. Now, from there, you can follow that one road north. Actually, it would be not north, it would be west, up until the top there, where they have Khufu's Diner. You see it right there on your screen, Khufu's Diner. Now, behind Khufu's Diner, if you walk around, you have this area they like to call the Tomb of the Birds. Now, I don't have really good photos of that, but that guy Jeffrey Durham did one of his Saturday or Sunday walks, and he actually went to both. Well, I will say both, but it's actually three of them. That location, which on some maps will be called N, it is not. She asked if it was covered up. It is not actually covered up. It's a hole on the side of the wall. And once I show you where they are, I can probably try to find a photo or two off of the Giza um, photos that will show it to you. But there's one there. There's one approximately here. I think that's the other one. And then there's a third one, it might be that one right there that you can see. Now, they're they all look identical. They're all at about a 90 to 100 feet in elevation above ground level. And let's see if this actually will pull up a picture of what it looks like. No, they're showing you a bunch of pictures. There's a picture inside of it. I don't know what that dog is. I'm trying to look for there. See that's what kind of it looks like. You see that? All right. It's a hole in the wall. Now, this hole in the wall today, they won't let you go in there because it's a quote unquote bat sanctuary. Uh, but when you go into them, this particular one, if you do a 45-degree angle and come down, you notice it will come down to approximately where I have on the screen right there, that corner. Um, and supposedly, now I can't, don't confirm this myself, but when they did ground penetrating radar, there is a shaft that goes at a 45-degree angle towards the center pyramid, what you have on the screen now, the one they like to call the Khafre pyramid. But I don't really like those names because it all goes back to the tomb dogma, and I don't believe any of that. But regardless of that, it's a physical structure. It's there. That opening is there. And there are two more like it. The center one, the one they like to call N2, which, again, this is where hopefully I will get boots on the ground eventually and get actual GPS coordinates so that people can actually go and look at it themselves. But I think it's right there what you're looking at, that fuzzy thing, is the second opening. And then there's a third one, which is further down. It might be that right there, but there are three of them. The center one, the second one, the one they like to call N2, it has a, um, today they call it a cave, but I'm going to insist at the time it was an aquifer that there is a very, okay, she asked me, looking at that, it looks like there's a drop, and yes, there is a there. Yeah, don't worry about the tomb thing, but yes, there is a very large drop. This is where it would be great if I could drop a little Google guy, and you could actually see that if we look down here on the road level. Again, she asked if it was finished off nicely, and if you understand what it is, it's not intended to be a tomb. So yes, it's finished off exactly what it's supposed to be, because it's not what they want to tell you it is. Yeah, you can see here. There's the cliff. Okay, you can see it. Yes, and up there, that is the eatery and stuff that you look at on the map, and the area you're looking for. uh, Right. You can't hear her, but she's suggesting that I tell you that when you're looking at it from the top down, you can't tell that there's a very large drop there, which again is why I would hope to eventually someday, the same way they do planning when they're looking at moving a river or something, they take like a big, huge table and make a model and watch water flow. I hope to someday build a working model of this structure to show that it actually has form and function. And it's not just a pile of rock dedicated to a dead guy or several of them. But, okay. She's asking if the bit with the drop is man made. Well, the yes, everything there is man made. However, I believe the aquifer existed and they tapped into it. And what you're, I wish I could get you much better pictures of this. There is a flat surface. You go into a squared opening, and once you go into the squared opening, there are 6 openings to each side. And it is, I believe it is a spillway. And the water would have come out of the aquifer to that area there. And that gives you your water source at an elevation of 90-ish feet, which is, um, okay. She's asking me a question. Is it, it was I'm really actually confused by the question. I believe the aquifer existed from nature, and they put a manhole, a cap, a sewer grate on the edge of it to access the water. It's either one way or the other. It's either a drain for the excess water to go out, making sure that the water is the water level of the source of the water is at a constant level, or it is part of the water source. But either way, it shows that water was at that elevation, something we dismiss because it's currently dry and we don't think about it a whole lot. But water was at that elevation. That is our starting point of the water. The source of the water was at that elevation. From there, the water goes down the hill, because what you also can't see is this whole thing is at a angle that goes down to, I'm going to say, where the Sphinx is, which would have been the um, where the river, the Nile River, would have been. That's where the water starts at approximately 90 feet in elevation and will go down to approximately 20 feet in elevation. And as the water is going from the source to the bottom, is how and where the system plays with the water. But everything has to start from a source, and that tomb of the birds that they have no idea what it is or why it's there. And again, it would be great. I will put, if you go to photos.greatgizapyramid.com, you come to this site here you see on your screen. And I have lots of photos on here um, to reference and look at, so you can actually put eyes on it. And I will do my diligence to try to put pictures of that area in these photos so I can refer to them. And also, I want to go through all these photos over time and actually give them, currently they're labeled exactly as they were when I acquired them from whatever website I acquired them. But I want to relabel them, like photo, 512, or, with some reference of the structure and the location so that people can find them easier. But you're welcome to dig through these photos to pull up references, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. Like this photo, which is one you'll never see again, because this is actually under the floor of the king's chamber. And there are bricks, which I discussed with you, the whole brick scenario like a decade ago. Um, this is under the floor of the king's what I call the combustion chamber, but they like to call the King's Chamber within the Great Giza Pyramid, which is the further north structure. And you see bricks against the back wall, which is something when I first thought, I thought that they had opened it up and there was sand and it was flowing in. So they put the bricks on there to keep the sand from flowing in to, fill it up. And I thought that was done at the time they broke into here to find treasures and stuff like that. I have hence reconsidered that the bricks were actually part of the actual construction. And the way I came to that conclusion is when you watch that 18-year-old kid that climbed up the outside of the structure, which you can find. I have his video on my on my playlist. I can't get this screen this off my. Oh, and that's looking down into the hole. That is still in the King's Chamber, but they have hence covered the floor with a piece of metal that looks like rock. So, trying to make it out of sight, out of mind. Because this, which they say was dug by a tomb raider looking for a tomb, which doesn't explain why it has squared edges down there, that you don't think about it, because this particular picture doesn't give any support for their tomb dogma. And when you really look at it and scrutinize it, it doesn't give any support for their breaking in looking for treasure dogma either. But that's because I don't believe either of those. Um, and when you look at how the system flowed and what it was doing, you'll get a better grasp of it. But nothing makes sense unless there's a picture to support what I'm saying. I don't have to make up anything. Everything is physically there. This is outside the west side of the Great Giza Pyramid. No, I'm sorry, south side. No, west. I was right the first time. The west. I am totally wrong. East. Here. This. It is located right there. It's that hole right there. It's on the east side of the Great Giza Pyramid. Um, that what we were just looking at is that hole right there, and it makes no sense to the tomb dogma. But when we actually get into the flow and function of the entire system, this is a very delicate balancing point. And this would be much easier to demonstrate when I have a model and can actually show you what it's doing. But at that point is I'm just going to say, and you can trust me later, it is a delicate balancing point when all the different water pressures of all the different types of water, and I will say types of water because water itself sitting in a glass, it's all a mixture of several different components of water. One in every 6,800 drops is heavy water. You can talk to that bubbly lady that did the TED talk of how there are 74 different ways that the hydrogen and water can join together, and the frequencies they jumble at and vibrate at and all that other stuff. And this whole system is designed to separate and isolate different, I'm going to use the suggestion, frequencies of water, different stabilities of water. And it was designed to separate them. And some of the components of, I mean, they wouldn't be separating it if there wasn't some magical component of one of the stability sets of water that they appreciated. This whole system was not done for no reason. Um, I almost, oh, what I was getting at, I was talking about the flow. I've always suggested the water came from the source up here and was channeled down through this area here where all the mastabars are, and then came down and would enter into the system through what everyone likes to call the grand entrance, main entrance, whatever, where everyone enters right there on your screen. I have since come to realize, and I say realize, that that's wrong. The whole system source water comes down and fills the outside of this, the second structure, where you can even see, drop my guy here, you can see that there is a spillway right there. You see it? That that little dam there that you can see that running right across the center of your screen there, that maintained a 6 to 1 foot deep puddle around the entire structure. Now, what you can almost see from here is that as it gets up to the right next to the pyramid, the sand and the rock actually go up in elevation, which would actually maintain the pool about 20 feet away from the edge of the structure. So all the water in question would be not up against the bottom of the structure, but away from it. It would be like teasing it. And I can't get the Google guy deeper into here, but if you went around to the other side, you notice the entrance that goes down into the structure right there. It's actually right at where I say you can see right there the difference in color from where it's going down at an angle and goes flat. You see that right across the screen? You can practically see the difference in shading of color. That's because the pool would be maintained approximately 20 feet away from the edge, but it would go down into there to saturate the all the system within that particular structure. And then from there, in my other videos, I've talked about how that structure shorts with this structure, and that's actually how the water got into there. It's what? Yes. This one's the control right there. That the shorter one, the one that's half the size of the other structures, that's the control. And either one of these is either in comparison to it positive or negative. This one is going to be your well, it's going to be your negative. It has the highest amount of static electricity because of the way it's got two. Well, it's got one on this side, but that's not actually, it doesn't open into the structure. I think that side is a little bit more communication. We can dabble about later, because the water on this side is maintained at ground level. The water on this side does not go up that high. In fact, the water on this side, I have since come to believe, does not actually go up that. The sand would have been up there and there would have been a pool on the outside of it, but the water that was in this structure feeds from the center structure. Where did I just? Yeah, from the center structure, and actually comes into the area they like to call the grotto. And as I've talked, this area here, the Karen structure, this one right here, okay, that one. Now, the Karen structure, I love because when we look inside of it, it's going to be hard for me to get the inside. No, it won't. Actually, to get the inside of it, all you have to do is go to any web browser and you type Karen dot Great Giza Pyramid .com, and you will magically be inside the Karen structure. Now, the Karen structure right here, this controls pressure. That right there is the feed hole that shorts to the grotto. And what this will do is allow the liquid and the gas within the grotto to equalize with the structure in here. If there's too much air pressure, the air would actually escape out that. You see that hole that goes at 90 at a 45-degree angle? That would allow when the gas filled this room and got down to this rock right there. I'm not going to tell you there's communication, but that elevation right there equals with that hole right there and would go up and escape out this entrance right here. This area that you see there, that was capped off. And it was that piece of rock and that piece of rock and potentially that piece of rock and that piece of rock, not that one. Yeah, that piece of rock, that's loose. And there's like 2 or 3 other loose pieces of rock, like that one there, that they broke to gain entry to here. But if we replaced those, that would it would make it so that the gas would come down and bubble out through there. Now, the liquid would actually, there's an opening, you can't see it, but behind there, you can reach your arm down behind there, and there's an opening there, and they actually evacuate out to a opening which is kind of hard to see, but it's like where that black dot is on the screen. It comes out of the outside. Let's see if I can get a Google guy on this side. No, it's over here. Where am I? That's the big structure. We're not where I dropped it. Anyway, give me a second. Well, because I had to pick a name, and being that I was trying to explain it to you, I thought it best to call it Karen. Am I where I want to be? See, I keep dropping it where I want to be, but I'm not there. Hang on a second. Let me get my orientation. That's the Great Giza Pyramid. Those are the 3 supporting structures. Yeah, between these 2 structures, you see how there's a gate there? There's a gate there because there's a channel dug into the ground. See if I can get around. There you go. See that channel dug into the ground? Okay. It shorts to the opening. You can see it right there where the sign is. That probably says, please don't climb in here. You'll get stuck. Right there, that hole. You see it back there? That hole shorts to the opening where I said the Karen, sorry, within the Karen structure would come out. That's because within this structure, within the Karen chamber, if too much gas is in there, the gas bubbles out, maintaining the elevation. If there's too much, I'm going to suggest to you in this case, heavy water, the heavy water, which is heavier, would be able to flow out that opening and through this channel and join this. You can see here, this would be a, well, okay, she's saying that you have to control the pressure because it will explode. I don't think there would have been enough pressure for it to, blow its top. I guess if it was completely, if it, yes, yes, this is all okay. What she's saying is um, that it was engineered to do what I'm suggesting. And I, again, I'm not changing, I'm repairing things. I'm telling you to put that wall back together where we broke it because we broke it. I'm not saying put something there that was never there. You can see here where these people are walking, there's a channel there. That's because that's where the water would flow down and would eventually come into the edge of. It wouldn't go in to the front of, but it would go into the edge of the Sphinx here. It would come down this side where you see the water wear there, because it would come from up here. You can see where the channel is. You can see right there the wear where it goes up right to this channel, which we were just looking at. Okay. I don't have to, oh, there it is. I actually did it wrong. This channel here. You can see where it's carved out. Today we have a road there, but at one point there wasn't a road there. And that would have come across and gone down and actually came into the side of the Sphinx. Now there's going to be reasons why it comes into the side of the Sphinx, but you'd have to see the whole system and understand what's going on to appreciate why they were doing the things they were doing. But the fact that the channel exists, I don't have to make it. And anyone who has like a 50-gallon thing of water and fills, well, this would probably be more than a 50-gallon. That would probably take a small semi. But if you just fill that with water and watch where the water goes, it will go down that channel. It'll feed until it hits the road. And because of we have a road there, now it'll just follow the road and do what the road does. But if the road wasn't there, we ripped the road up, you would see the water would come down and would have come into the side of the Sphinx, right where that weathering is. Now, the water that came down, well, I think the shape of the Sphinx that could have, well, right. The weather thing they say is from millions of years of rain. I think it's actually from thousands of years of use. The water that came from here, you can see would run down the side. You can see where you have all those trails would fill. There's actually going to be two pools. I think we've discussed this. On one side, you have this one pool here. You can even see where the pool is. You can see where the water has weathered it, and there's a pool there. And then it would spill and go down into the Sphinx and back into the Nile River, would come north a bit, circle around, and then join where all these houses are, which would have been where the Nile River is, where the Nile River was or is in. Yes, this here. Okay, that's the other thing I have on my. If you go to my photos page, and let me get back to it. Okay, all right. So if you go to the photos.greatgizapyramid.com, this one photo right here, I have two of them. This is one of them. Gives you the terrain, and you can see up here the water source is at a high level. You can see here, 105 is kind of like where Khufu's diner is, and the bird thing is right here on the right, right there. Would be approximately there on the screen. Still up at about 90 feet in elevation. From there, things run down. You can see 90 feet, 70 feet, 65 feet. The water will run down till it gets to the Sphinx, where this is approximately 20 feet in elevation above sea level. Everything I'm saying is above sea level. But you can see how there is a slope there. It runs down. Water will run down. That's just unless you get it hot and turn it into steam, water runs downhill. That's just one of the things that we don't get around too much. Now, honestly, we can play with it using sound and magnetics and stuff like that. But in a normal ambient environment, water runs downhill. Now, Karen was asking me really quickly about when I felt the structures were constructed. I don't care when they were constructed. I don't care if they were built in the early 1900s and they tell us that they're thousands of years old. What I'm looking at is the shape, function, and by that, what work the function does if we were to not pretend they were tombs and actually consider them to be a big science experiment. Because physical science doesn't care about tomb stories, it cares about natural and physical science. Now, I had two terrain videos, but I can't find. This is the one that Artis showed us a decade ago. That is the opening. It's been plugged with sand and stuff, but that is the feed of where they got um, the product out, and that I think it doesn't have to be very big. It's a gas. They're pulling a gas out, and that they pull out. Where did I lose my maps to? Da, 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 da. There we go. That they pull out of this structure on this side, where this mess is, because this is where the harvest is harvested from. These of that particular thing, but again, until I get well. It it does, and I see it that way. And again, once I get a physical model and it shows a flow and a function, and somebody will say, "Oh my goodness, this will actually work, and this will actually do that," then people will see it differently. Like this right here is your standard internal map. And I can point out all the problems with this because it's missing so many things. Not only that, they also like to append things that don't exist. They make it go to a point. It never went to a point. It was flat, like they show there before they put it. They like to say there was a limestone exterior. That's poppycock in my opinion. The exterior that is on there, which you can actually get to by going to surface.greatgizapyramid.com, which I also have a picture of in here. In fact, it'll bring it to it when I find it. And this is why I'd like to have these in an order so I can find them quicker. But it brings you to a printout. Give me a second while I mumble while I try to find it. That is right there. This picture right here, which shows you the different steps, depth. You can look into it. It's a chart. They have a better one now that was done with 3D drones, and you can actually get a better image. But you can see very clearly a sweeping pattern, and that sweeping pattern pushes the static electricity towards the surface of the structure. Right. That all those markings are the markings of these steps here you see. Ignore that line on the outside. That's the hypothetical limestone thing. But all those deviations are the readings of these steps that you see here. And what they will do is help to quarantine the static electricity towards the upper 2/3 of the structure and not allow it to either vent off into the ether above because it has a flat top, and not vent down to the ground below because it has the barrier right there, which is at the, actually it's that one right there at the 32nd step. It's the largest and tallest, and it will act as a barrier the same way that I love showing this right here. This is how we created the blue colored LED, and they did it on a, the nanometer level of making the electrons what they call pool into an area until they created enough energy to jump to the other side of the reaction. And this was right there is where the reaction occurs. And right here, you see those little icons. Those are the representation of the electrons. And the electrons will pool until they jump to the other side, and by doing so release the amount of energy that we refer to as the blue LED. And if you look at that there, and then you look at the surface of the structure, you see the similarities because these guys are working on the nano level scale, the macro, sorry, the micro level, where the Great Giza Pyramid is working on the macro level. It's working on it on in whole. If you have like a balloon that you rub on your head and it gets static electricity, and on the other side of the room you got three people rubbing three balloons and putting them together, which one is going to have the larger concentration of static electricity? Obviously the three. So they're doing it on the macro level the same way we invented the blue LED on the micro level. And it just shows you that these guys understood static electricity and how to abuse it much more efficiently. Yeah. Well, okay. She's asking me if all the pyramids are like that or just that one. To my knowledge, this one is the only one in existence constructed the way it's constructed. In fact, these three pyramids that work as a system, as far as I can tell, are the only ones constructed in this fashion. Now, there are other pyramids, honestly, thousands of them on the surface of the earth. Um, like let's go to South America, the Tomb of the Sun and the Tomb of the Moon. Yes, this is the only one constructed in this particular way. Now, there's a gentleman out there Carl Monk, who wrote a book and does a series of videos. I hope he's not dead yet. Called The Code. It's just very simple, The Code, and you can get to it very simply by going to thecode.greatgizapyramid.com, because I try to make things as simple as I can. And you can watch his video. He's very dry and boring, but he shows that the majority of the monolithic structures upon the surface of the earth are waypoints, and you can look down upon them from elevation, either a hot air balloon or a zeppelin or something of that nature. And from altitude, not only can they be seen the same way a buoy is seen while you're in the bay, and each buoy would have a buoy number on it. In this case, when you're looking down upon it, you do a mathematical equation based on the exterior of the structure, and it will tell you its logarithm and its latitude and longitude. Sorry, it's latitude and longitude. Uh huh. Well, you can see shadows and you do it, and the chart that I had showed you. Let me get back to it right here. This is done in inches, and some of them, like the ones up here, are 20 inches in difference. Like you can do some quick math. You can do some quick math on those numbers, and you can see that they're only like well, I don't know which number you're looking at, but you can see that they're about 20 inches in deviation. And if we look down here, this one down here, this one is 54 inches in deviation. So 54 inches is going to be over a yard, where 20 some inches is going to be less than a yard. Okay. What you're looking at is a chart. You're not looking at the rocks. You're looking at a chart, and the chart um, represents. Let me get you a real picture of the structure. The chart represents when somebody is like, uh, come on, I don't know if I have. When you're standing in front of the Great Giza Pyramid, here, let's go back to the map, and let's go ahead and drop myself right up here. Come on, all right, and we look at it. Okay, right here. All right. What it's saying is, you see how somebody's standing on there, and that's probably a 5 foot person, 5 foot tall person, and it's up to their shoulders. Okay, that's because that down there is very tall. Now, let me get back to, I shouldn't have gotten rid of the image. Let me get back to that image I had. Uh, Give me a second. I'm sorry. Babble, babble, babble. Mm. Oh, and here's the same thing in numbers without the chart. If you actually just wanted to look at the numbers, so anybody who wanted to look at it. But where did I lose it to? Oh, here we go. Here we go. Right there. Okay. So what we're looking at there is these down here. You see how here these guys are about 3 feet in size? You see those numbers that you're looking at down there at the bottom? Those are inches. So the first one is 58.6 inches. The next one's 107.7 inches. Okay. The next one is 155.9 inches. So what those are showing is these right here, the elevations of those steps. And you see how the steps start to get closer together? You see that? I'm looking, and you look right about. I'm looking for that right there is a very tall step. See that tall step right there? That's practically in the center of the screen right there. That one, that one is going to be that guy right there. So each one of these, if you're looking at it, is the elevation, and the distance from the chart up is actually the step in. So each one of these, sure. I believe it was done on purpose, because when you look at what it does, if you go back 80 years ago, they say, and I don't disbelieve them, that people would climb up to the top of the structure with a loose, with a bottle of wine and a damp rag, and you could put the damp rag and the bottle of wine and hold it up in your hands, and you get little sparks shooting off the damp rag up into the ether. And the reason this occurs is because this structure acts like the surface of a Van de Graaff generator. You know, those things that, like, in science class, you get some cute blonde with long hair to touch, and her hair stands up on end. Have you ever seen that? Okay. So that is what nature is letting this surface of this structure do, is any standard brush discharge static electricity, which would fall upon the surface of the structure, would be then pushed towards the top of the structure, and it would be maintained on the structure up until you see there's an antenna on the top of it that we stuck there about 100 years ago to alleviate that nasty buildup of the static electricity. That's because we didn't see that as a potential. We saw that as nasty. Somebody stands on there and their hair starts standing up, the hair on their arms starts standing up. And if they don't do things correctly, if they reached up tall and they were tall enough, they could get a little shock of electricity jolting off of them up into the out into the air surrounding them. And that's because you're standing on the surface of a natural Van de Graaff generator. Now, at the time, that energy was utilized to do work, but we don't have this thing up and running. Therefore, it was annoying static electricity. The same stuff that's in your dryer, the same reason you put anti-static sheets. Yeah, yes, tubes wouldn't do that. But and you put anti-static sheets in your dryer. Nature creates static all by itself. And they were just letting nature create the static, and then they were utilizing. So if nature created the static on the surface of this would then be your negative terminal. And on this terminal, which is smooth up at the top, and you can even see right there is like a grounding plane where it would take the static electricity on the surface of here. You can see how it's quarantined up here to the surface. You see that little square that goes around it. And it would take that static electricity using this grounding plane right here, and would vent it up into the atmosphere, the ether, the surrounding air. So this would then be positive. So in comparison, on any given day, while the wind is blowing, whatever happens to this, it's more negative than the ambient air outside. And this one is going to be less electrical, have less ambient static electricity, because it's venting it off into the ether. This is acting just like an antenna, where this is acting more like a grounding plane, because it's flat at the top intentionally, other than the nice antenna that we put on there to vent off that nasty static electricity. Of course, they don't allow anybody to climb up there, A, for insurance reasons, they don't fall and get hurt, and B, if they did climb up to the top, they would realize their hair was standing up on end and stuff like that, because you're standing on the surface of a huge Van de Graaff generator. And it's the difference between those two voltages, which, in honesty, could be millions of volts. When you think about it, you touch a doorknob, that's like 115,000 volts or something. Okay. And you get shocked from touching a doorknob. This could be millions of volts, but it's millions of volts at a very low amperage, but still there's potential for work. And we dismiss that potential. And I've talked to you over the past decades of how, if I gave you a solar charger in the 1980s, there's nothing you could do with it. It wouldn't even light a light bulb from a torch, from a flashlight, up until we got the LEDs, which then take micro amounts of electricity to generate light. And nowadays we have LEDs on everything. And think about it. If the telephone screen you had now was done with standard light bulbs, your battery wouldn't last like 10 minutes, but yet your battery lasts like 10 hours because we have found a way to get a lot of work done with a little energy. These guys found a way to get, I'm not going to say a lot of work, but any work. They found a way to get work done with a little bit of energy that we dismissed. We didn't even understand electricity until the 17, 1800s, 1600s, if you want to talk about Faraday rubbing his rods. But we really didn't understand electricity until recently. And these guys show you. All right. Well, she's saying that we get our electricity from a plug and they get theirs from the atmosphere. Well, we get our electricity from the atmosphere too. The electric, even though nowadays it comes from a plug, when you think about it, like people are like, well, I have this electric car, I'm going to go green. Okay, where do you get your power from? The plug in the wall. Okay, where does the power from the plug in the wall come from? It either comes from hydroelectric, windmills, coal oil plants, or turbines, which I guess would fall back to hydroelectric. So all of our electricity that we use currently today, we don't absorb, we generate, we make it, we brute force make it. Now we could have solar cells and we could use static electricity. In fact, I will tell you now, and you can believe me later, that if you were to take some old church in the middle of, you know, downtown, well, it wouldn't be downtown, like Edinburgh or something like that, you'll notice that most of the time they had a metal steeple, not wooden steeple, a metal steeple. Why did they have a metal steeple? Because if you have a metal steeple, then you run a copper wire from that metal steeple all the way down to, the back room where the priests hang out, and you connect it to the outside of like a metal baking dish, and inside of there you put like lemon juice, and then you put like a penny in there, a copper penny, and then you take from that copper penny, you take a wire and you run it to earth, to ground, and you just let it sit there for a few weeks. After a while, the metal from the pan, whatever it is, whether it be tin, whether it be aluminum, whatever it is, will start to accumulate on the surface of the penny. That's called electroplating. So if you think about it, in the old days, you could take a chunk of nickel and some silver, or a chunk of nickel and some gold, and you do the exact same thing, and you could gold plate or silver plate your nickel coin. And it's hardly going to change the weight, but it will change the outside. And when somebody looks at it real quickly, they'll say, "Oh yeah, it's a nice silver coin, or it's a nice gold coin," when really it's not. And that's electroplating, and that's something that can be done. Some guy in Wyoming can do it today. You don't have to have any special equipment. And this is, I believe, a knowledge that the Templars and the money changers never wanted anyone to know, appreciate, or understand. Otherwise, it would completely undermine their monopoly on money production and the value of money. I also feel to this day that the water that we call holy water was actually colloidal silver, which would be manufactured the exact same way. Only instead of running the wire down, you'd run the wire down to a silver coin, and you just put that silver coin in the water. And as the water would pull the silver from the coin to the pan, if you did it the opposite way, it would pull the it would suspend the silver in the water while it's working its way to the pan. And then you take that water and you put it in the in the church things, and people dip their fingers in it and touch it to their forehead, or you sprinkle it on the people, and everyone's getting a little dose of colloidal silver. And that is actually antimicrobial and antibiotic antibacterial and antimicrobial. It's a known thing. It's today we put it in silver iodine. Why do we do that? We put it in silver, the silver gel that they put on wounds. We put it in silver is a very, I mean, we say it's a new thing, but I think it was done hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And I think it all changed around the 1400s when we decided that, what I say we, when the church decided that it was more in love with the love of money rather than doing good for its attendees, and they changed holy water and they just said now it's just blessed, when I really think holy water was colloidal silver. If you look at the benefits of colloidal silver, you look at how holy water was utilized through the centuries, that I think holy water was colloidal silver water, and the the hierarchy of the church knew how to utilize it, and they didn't try to explain it to the commoners, but yet they provided it to them until they stopped. And then as soon as they stopped, people started getting sick. Yes.
I'm back now, Angel.
Well, glad to have you back in audio.
What it is I just cannot do. I can do me and Angel now as narration because we're on the same speaker, but when he's on the computer, if I was on there, it'd be horrible. So I just listened to you, but I said a few things. But I am very honoured that you called it Karen Building.
Well, like I said, I had to name it something.
Oh, well, it's very nice that you named it after me, Angel. In your research. It's an honour, isn't it? It's an honour. But that was very interesting what you said about all that. And I don't think people realise how much it's higher up this end and lower down this end, that the thing is actually elevated anyway and is completely man-made. The whole thing that it sits on is completely man-made. And that, we've talked about it in the past where they look like they're docking things on the side, so water would have come round there, and some things were going on boats or coming on boats. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, I'm sorry. My mom was talking to me.
I'm just remembering what you said to me. But I don't think people realise how high it is at one end and lower. But you know what I was thinking? Listen, do you know what I was thinking when you were going through it? A lot of people, how does the water get to the top of a mountain and then come out the top and like a waterfall all the way down? It's got to get up there, and they've obviously they've done the same sort of thing for this. The water's down there and they get the water comes up.
Yes. It was either done naturally through an aquifer, or it is an extremely potential that they could have used there's lots of different ways.
And anyway, why would you have all this water around tombs?
Well, I'll tell you, my opinion is that in the, 1500s or whatever, 1200s, when they first discovered these things, they found truly tombs in the Valley of the Kings. And 1500, in the 1500s, they didn't know about heavy water, they didn't know about electricity, they didn't know about a lot of things. So they had to come up with what was the most logical at the time conclusion. And I'm not saying they came up with a bad conclusion, I just say they came up with the wrong conclusion. And as time went on, they are unwilling to rethink their decision. People go to school and colleges to learn the story, and they regurgitate the story very well. They get degrees, but that doesn't mean the story is right.
You have taught me so much about the pyramids. I hadn't even realised, because they, when you're looking at them, you often just get this aerial view down at them, that all the pyramids were on different levels anyway. And the biggest one is it built into the ground a bit, so it doesn't particularly look much taller than the other one, but it is because it's further down in the ground.
Correct.
See, you've taught me so much. And also the positive, neutral and negative, that they're one of each other, and one's making it, one's pooling it, and one's exporting it.
Venting it. Yeah. And that's, about Santa. Now, I talked to somebody else who, we're not going to mention Mr. Riley's name. When I was trying to tell him about static electricity and television over there in the UK, you don't ground your television antennas. Here in the States, if we don't ground our antennas, after a few weeks, you start to get what they used to call snow on the TV, white spots that would just appear out of nowhere. And that was all the extra static electricity which would build up on the surface of the antenna, which would give false readings to the TV who was trying to decode the signals. And if you were listening to it audibly, it would be like sparks and pops and whistles and stuff. But on the TV signals, you see it as what they call snow, make it grainy. It would either be from a weak signal or from a signal which is being overloaded by static electricity. And to alleviate that problem, we grounded our television antennas. But of course, when television first came out in what was it, the 1940s or something like that, it wasn't a problem until people started getting better and better television sets, and they realized that some people had snow and some people didn't, and in the drier atmospheres they had to ground them and blah, blah, blah. This is something that we have learned how to alleviate, which means it exists. If it didn't exist, we wouldn't have to alleviate it. If it didn't exist, we wouldn't have to have an antenna on the top of the structure to alleviate it.
All along, I knew that it wasn't a tomb. It was pretty obvious to me it was never a tomb. And then I came across you, which Mr. Riley did introduce us, which is the nicest thing he did. Yeah, and you've just taught me so much. I love that video you did, with the fish thing and the water bubbling. And what an amazing way to explain or show people that this is what was happening inside. It was fizzing away and all this stuff was happening.
Yes, and once I get a model and people can see it, it's very hard to dismiss that the structure does work, but you can only really realize that. And it's hard to see when you're standing in front of something which is like a mile square. It's actually, from what I think, it's like 1.2 miles square, something like that. When you look at it, that it's one system. But then again...
But there's more of them, isn't there? So, say this is a plant, which is what you said it is, a mechanical plant, making gases and separating waters, heavy water, stuff, right? Light water, and using those things for different things that we don't even understand today. But there are other pyramids down the Nile, aren't there? They may not have the Great Pyramid in it with the arcing, but there's all these pyramids which could be like substations.
Well, I think that somebody else, Jeffrey Drum, who...
But also, imagine what they could do. So if the Nile was a lot bigger and flowing, imagine what they could get from that. The bigger the river, the more energy and everything, which it isn't today.
Yes, it's because we've dammed it up. We have several dams on there, the Aswan Dam and half a dozen other dams. But the guy, Jeffrey Drum, who does the Land of Chem, I think he has pretty much pinpointed what they call it, the bent pyramid, the red pyramid. He has pretty much pinpointed how that one was doing, which is pretty simply called...
but you know what, Angel? I'm sorry, I'm just interrupting, but... Why don't they ever explain that there's loads more of them? Then you'd realise it was all sort of a system. I only realised that a little while ago that there was loads of them down the Nile. I only thought there was those three there because they're the only ones they go on about.
Well, that's a question for the tourism, and probably the reason they don't is because some of them are boring, and they're not going to try to get you to go to something that's boring as far as tourism. The tourism industry wants you to come and see them, spend money, pay,
and go to the tombs,
go inside,
and go to the
tombs.
But what is it, Angel? It's a
machine.
It's a machine.
The word I was looking for before was composting. The red pyramid is really just a big composting machine. And that is something that farmers have been doing since the turn of time. And being that the average person is not a farmer would look at it and say, wow, that's a really big, huge composting machine. The person looks at it, ooh, wow, a tomb. It makes no sense why they built it this way. And why does it smell like ammonia on the inside? Well, anyone.
Can I say something? Can I say something to that? Do you remember they're there on the picture right now, all those little, next to the farthest pyramid with all those little, it's called the West Fields of Gaza. Those things, like you said, maybe they were putting water in them, but they smell of ammonia, don't they? And everybody says, oh, people go down there and pee in them.
Well, okay. Though the Massabat things in the center, some people do pee in them. But when you're in the red pyramid, it smells very heavy of ammonia.
Right.
And it's a very distinct ammonia smell. It's not the same as urine smell. And one thing that, I don't know if you've done this, but if you have a plant and you leave it outside.
Can I ask you something? Let
me finish what I'm saying. Just hear me out.
Oh, all right.
You put your plant outside, it rains, and the planter fills up with water because you don't have a planter that out. And you go up to it about like a month later and you spill that water out, and you know how nasty it smells? The ammonia smell?
Yeah.
Okay, you've done that, right? All right. That ammonia smell is the plant, the biological plant in the soil, breaking down and doing its stuff. And one of its byproducts naturally is ammonia. Now, because you had it in a enclosed environment in that planter, that the potting soil or within that pot, when you pour it out, you smell. That's the same exact thing that happens in composting, only that's your intention is to get it break down. And that's what composters do, and it smells like ammonia. That structure, which has a heavy ammonia smell, I believe was doing composting on an industrial scale. So I'm not the only one. You know, Jeff has.
Can I ask you something? It wasn't
Sure.
a great big water plant, was it? And they were taking seawater and everything and then turning it into natural water. Because I know that you said there's light water.
Where do you get seawater in the middle?
The lake, sorry, the water from the lake. They're taking the water from the lake. Is it a waterworks?
I could say yes, because it is manipulating water, but I don't think
you're saying it's making gases
or clean the water. They were separating the water into its components.
Which is quite incredible when you think about it, because how would they know how to do that?
Well, if we lived like it says in the Bible to be 200, 300, 400 years old, we'd have a lot more time to actually observe nature and research, like Victor Schauberger did. We'd have a lot more time to take notes if we weren't chasing the dollar.
Or they hadn't changed history and lied to us. But you know what? If they're going to show the pharaohs, I worked out that the pharaohs are Indians. So how could they do it? They couldn't do it.
I don't think the pharaohs. This is the thing. If you're trying to make me answer why the story says blah blah blah, I've started by saying I don't believe the story. No. I don't believe pharaohs had anything to do with these structures. I think the pharaohs came after the fact. Based on the way the topology is and the construction of them, I'm assuming they came after the pharaohs were there after the fact. These things were in the pharaoh's backyard. I don't think the pharaohs had anything to do with them. No way can I justify or put the pharaohs and say, oh, it was done this way because the pharaoh,
agreed.
Blah, blah, blah.
I was just putting that in there. Like, how could they, when they're Indians with feathers,
right.
build them?
Going back to what you had said that you kind of stopped me on is, now I'm trying to remember, the people that came up with the initial theory, again, made this theory 1,000 years ago. It's now 2025. They made this theory in 1500. When they first broke into it, supposedly was the 1200s. Before that, to it, the 0800s. Now that's if we believe our timeline is contiguous. You and I feel that there may be a gap in our timeline where they change things around to make history sound better. And one thing that one of my other side projects that I've talked to you about is that we don't read time the way we should read time.
No, we did a big hangout about that.
We should let the skies tell us the time. Instead, we let our iPhones tell us the time, the calendars tell us the time, and the news tell us the time, which makes it so that my president, Bush, 20 years ago, decided that he wanted to add what did he want? He wanted to add a second or something like that to make it jive with the national thing. And he could do that because he's the president, so he just dictated there's one extra second on the end of this day and this. How is our government dictating time to us? They tell us when New Year's is. They tell us this. We tell us to fall back and daylight forward and blah, blah, blah. Instead of us actually
That's for the
reading time
globe,
from the
that
sky.
one. That's for the globe.
Right. We have surrendered how we read time to let our government dictate time to us instead of us actually reading time. Because if we actually read time, then the government wouldn't be able to lie to us. But the knowledge of how to read the time skies away from the general populace, that if you point out to them that even the railroads back in the 1800s, and you look at them, they had to synchronize time. It was a big deal then. How do you synchronize time? And you look at how they synchronized time, they always had to have an observatory that they would use, because it's when a certain star passes across a certain fictitious barrier in the sky that poof, that's midnight. And, things are calculated based on the celestial movements, not based on a nuclear clock. And I argue with people constantly, even in the real world, when I say, like, okay, but the nuclear clock keeps time. It doesn't set time. The time is set from an observatory. You can Google this. No, all the nuclear clocks and all that stuff, they just keep time. They don't set time.
We did a big hangout about that about 6 months ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
Can I ask you something? Wouldn't you like to know who built this and how they did it? Wouldn't you just love to see the?
Well, I would.
The prints,
but at this point, I want to build a model and show that it does work, show that it has function. Because, like, if somebody has a car engine sitting there and it's a huge car engine and they're crawling through it and say, oh, the Pharaoh liked this because he would slide down it when he was bored, and he would go into this room when it was bored, and and he would go over here, but really it's a big engine. But until you put gasoline in there and a couple of spark plugs and you turn it on and actually show that, hey, this thing functions as a machine.
Do you know what it makes you, when you talk about it, when you watch those things when they go, that ball bounces down on that sets that off, and then the marble goes down there, and then that does that. It's like that, isn't it?
It is. But until you understand there was a marble bouncing around, it looks like a really cool thing with chutes and ladders, and you can say, oh, the king did this for this reason, and this bell is over here for this. Like, no, the bell is over there, so when the ball hits it, it goes ding. It's something to keep the kid that put the quarter in entertained.
Thing is, I do have to go very shortly now.
All right.
But we could go on forever. We've been talking now for nearly 3 hours, and the hangout isn't that long. We were talking, I was talking a bit before, but yeah, we could talk about this forever. It's never the end. It's only a pause, because then we come back and talk about more. It must be very frustrating when you understand how it works, and you still feel that you've got to tell people it's a machine.
Until I get a physical model that I can show people and say, look, I'm not lying to you. I'm telling you this is what nature will do. If I pour water here, it will fall down there. Here's one. Have you ever seen at swap meets and stuff where they have where you put incense at the top and the incense rolls down the side of it and like goes from one level to the other, and it looks like a really cool wave? Have you seen these? Do you know of what I speak?
No, I haven't. Sorry.
All right, let me try to pull you up an image.
But I can't see it. Well, all right then. Show me. Sorry, everybody. Showing me. Come on.
I gotta find one. Hang on a second.
Oh, I see it is on. I was trying to get your picture up and it's on. Oh, right.
I'm on my screen?
Yeah, I just seen it. I just saw it. Yeah.
You see that purple thing right there?
Yeah.
And you can even see they have. Okay, so now if the incense wasn't up at the top of that burning, and you looked at it, you could say, oh, it was so that like bugs would sit on different shelves and they'd have little family units. because you don't see the incense flowing down it, and it's designed that way intentionally.
Hello?
So,
Oh.
yeah, did I lose
So,
you?
no, it was me, because I took the phone away just for a second to take a picture of that thing, because I might stick that on the Hangout.
And there's another one. You see these things? See, the incense flows down them, and it makes a pretty design.
Yeah.
But without the incense flowing, it doesn't. It just looks like, what's that funny thing that they're trying to sell you for $17.99?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
People see it as
but I know, but you only know all this
all...
stuff because you've done your homework and you've spent hours and hours and tried to do the best you can by making that thing with the fish tank thing to show the bubbling, and you talk about it and you get pictures up and you discuss it. It's because you spend hours and hours looking at it, and most people go, oh, it's a tomb, because they look at a video.
Yes. It's a tomb. We'll go and visit that when we get $20,000 that we don't need. We'll go over there for a week and we'll hang out. We'll take pictures.
I mean, even the pyramid shape is amazing, isn't it? That they built it in the pyramid shape, and also it's not just 4 sides. There's 8, isn't there? Because there's 8.
Well, as I've said, I think there's actually 12. When you look at it, about 1/3 of the way down, there's a flat section. If you look at it, there's about at the bottom, it's a meter. So. I mean, you can only really see this if you take a layman across it, but you can see it in the shadows when you look at it. Where the 2 sides come together, there's a small strip. It's only about 2 meters at the bottom, and it goes down to a pinpoint at the top. But it is actually, I'd say, 12-sided, which is even better. But we can stick with 8. It still shows that it's not square.
But can we put the pause on it now? Because I do have to go, I'm afraid.
Yes.
But I'll say goodbye to you off air, but just for on air, thank you so much. I love you talking about it all. You're such a clever man, Angel.
Oh, thank you.
Well, you are, aren't you? Professor Angel.
You'd be the second one to call me that.
But it's actually an honour that I think that you have hangouts with me and discuss all this stuff with me. Not that we haven't been doing it for about 10 years now. 10 years, 2009 years we've been doing it. 9 years we've been having these chats. But you have moved on a little bit on some things, haven't you? You've changed your mind about a few things.
Well, I realized I was incorrect about some things.
Yeah. But we're
going to... Instead of standing on this is what I said, and even though it's wrong, I'm going to stand on it, I say I was wrong, and I need to correct
Well, that's good, though, because you evolve with it, and it keeps changing a little bit, and you're understanding more of it. But I've got to go, Angel. But thank you so much, and we will do another one soon.
You have a great day.
Yeah, don't go. I'm going to say goodbye to you off air, but on air for everybody. Thank you very much for listening to Lovely Angel. And isn't he brilliant? No one's taught him this. He's learnt this all out for himself. And what's your channel called?
GreatGeezerPyramid.com.
There you go. And in there you can get to some of this other stuff, can't you? Can you all? I can't remember now. Yeah, you've got files on there, haven't you? And playlists and stuff.
I do. I found the 310, 301, whatever.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you so much, Angel. A big kiss to you. And a kiss to the chat room. Thank you.
All right.